One of the key transportation hubs in Asia, Singapore's Changi International Airport has been ranked as the greatest airport in the world for 8 years running. It has 4 terminals, the most recent of which debuted in 2017. Additionally, Jewel, a shopping center featuring the biggest indoor waterfall in the world designed to draw visitors during layovers, is located in Changi. However, they would most certainly not stop at Terminal 4 after traveling this far. You may learn more about Changi's future in this article, as it is a component of the Changi East Project. Without any further ado, let's jump into the technicalities and wonders of this amazing project. Construction. The 5th terminal at Changi Airport will once again begin construction, according to Singapore. Following the start of the COVID-19 epidemic and the ensuing decline in demand for air travel, the construction of Terminal 5, which can accommodate 50 million passengers, was put on hold in June 2020. Speaking last week at the Changi Aviation Summit, Singapore's Transport Minister S. Iswaran said that given the present and forecast rebound in air travel demand, we have a fresh push to ensure our infrastructure capacity for development. Deadline and capacity. With a completion date of the middle of the following decade, construction work is currently anticipated to start in 2 to 3 years. A larger 1,080-hectare project called Changi East will include the airport's Terminal 5. The number of passengers at Singapore's state-owned Changi Airport dropped sharply from 68 million in 2019 to less than 12 million in 2020 and little over 3 million in 2021. However, traffic at the main airport has now surpassed pre-pandemic levels by 40%. Willie Walsh, Director General of IATA, encouraged Asia-Pacific nations this week to relax border controls to hasten the region's recovery from COVID-19 while also addressing the Changi Aviation Summit. The Changi East Project's past. The Changi East Project was unveiled by ministers and executives from Changi Airport Group in Singapore in 2013. The greatest airport in the world will be significantly expanded as a result of this project, which is expected to be completed in 2030 and add a new runway, a huge terminal, cargo facilities, and more. However, COVID-19 has caused at least a 2-year delay in its opening. Let's examine each project component in more depth. Terminal 5. The size of all 4 terminals combined will make up Changi Airport's Terminal 5, which will be the biggest of them all. It is close to Changi Airbase and next to runway 02C, 20C. The Changi Airport Group claims that T5 will be connected to the existing Changi Airport terminals, enabling the expanded Changi Airport to be run as a single, integrated airport for simple terminal switching and effective airfield operation. Additionally, new buildings will be built, including a fire station, lighting systems for the airstrip, and navigational aids. 4 distinct blocks or wings will make up the new terminal. They may be connected beneath 02R, 20R runway. A 3rd runway is required since there will be a much greater number of aircraft landing as a result of the new enormous terminal. Due to this, runway 02R, 20R at Changi Airbase was lengthened by 1.25 kilometers and changed to a mixed military and civilian runway in 2015. After the work was finished in 2020, it was made operational. Despite Terminal 5's impending inauguration, it is already actively flying both military and commercial aircraft. Industrial District of Changi. The Changi Industrial Zone's renovation is a significant component of the Changi East Project. The Changi East development will include an expansion of the cargo facilities at Changi Airport, which are now housed in the Changi Air Freight Center. The zone will be created for activities related to air freight, air express, maintenance, repair, and operations. The Changi handling capacity will grow from 3 million tons per year currently to 5.4 million tons per year in its end state when the project is finished, together with the remodeled Changi Air Freight Center. A game that long. Although the T5 tail extends back over 3 decades, the actual groundwork at Changi East just began 3 years ago. The relocation from Paya Lebar to Changi in 1981 required extensive work, including the demolition of 550 structures, the exhumation of 4,500 burials, the clearing of 200 ha of marsh area, the removal of 1 airfield constructed during the Japanese occupation, and the reclamation of 870 hectares of land. However, a decade after Terminal 1's debut, planners were back at it, looking for the following large piece of land for additional development. The cabinet authorized plans for more land to be recovered for airport development in 1989, even before T2 began operations. T5 is currently being built at this location. At the existing airport location, One of the early designs was for the construction of 3 passenger terminals with a combined processing capacity of 30 million people annually. The necessity for a 4th, 5th, and even 6th terminal at the Changi East site was anticipated back then. Although T4 opened last month where the budget terminal had stood, the 4th terminal was not constructed as originally intended. To satisfy demand for greater amenities and services from travelers, the Spartan facility was demolished. The officials, who requested anonymity, told Insight that the Urban Redevelopment Authority's inquiries came in fast and furious before the Changi East plot could be developed. Distance. It forced the airport to be creative, make the most of its resources, use technology, and accomplish more with less. With 3 terminals open, Changi handled a record-breaking 60 million passengers in the previous year. The distance between the airport's runways was a major topic of discussion in the 1990s. There were 2 landing strips at the current airport, but a 3rd would soon be required to accommodate the Changi East region and an increasing number of aircraft. The size of the parcel of land designated for the Changi East development would eventually be decided by how distant it should be from the 2 existing runways, which was a crucial topic. Design. Airport designers also kept in mind the necessity for a sufficiently wide separation to accommodate larger aircraft that were bound to be developed in the future. They were precise. The world's largest passenger plane, the Airbus A380, began operating on a commercial basis in 2007. Changi was concerned that there wouldn't be enough room to construct enough airplane gates and aerobridges without sufficient separation. This would have required more people to be transported by bus from the airport terminal to the airplane, which was not ideal. The lack of a SkyTrain connection to the other terminals is, in fact, a major annoyance of T4 travelers, despite the fact that they do not need to take a bus to and from the station. This necessitates using buses for transfers. The airport finally received the desired runway separation after 1.5 years of waiting. It took another 20 years for the final T5 plan to be determined after that was resolved and reclamation work got underway. The time was required for the thorough analysis and evaluation of many suggestions for the future design and layout of T5. Rise of mega terminals. Additionally, planners researched what other airports nationwide and in the area were doing. Mega terminals have become more popular than individual small and medium-sized terminals. Ultimately, T5 was chosen to use this design. The high-level steering group headed by the then Minister of State for Finance and Transportation, Josephine Teo, began work on creating a final T5 plan in April 2012. It was announced in 2015 that T5 will eventually be a mega terminal with 2 satellite terminals that could accommodate up to 70 million people annually. A need for planning. Chairman of the Changi Airport Group, CAG, Liu Moon Liang, said, "Many passengers complained about the empty space and check-in desks when we finished T3. We are stating that there is not enough room today." T3 debuted in 2008, the same year as the global financial crisis resulted in a sharp decline in demand for air travel. Before recuperation began, it took nearly a year. Insight recently spoke with Mrs. Teo, who is currently a minister in the Prime Minister's office. Projects to create air hubs demand significant resources. Our plans must also endure the extended gestation period because of this. Numerous hours were spent by the Interagency Changi 2036 Steering Committee analyzing statistics and trends, costs, and advantages. However, it is ultimately a leap of faith, a declaration of our conviction that Singapore will continue to be appealing to tourists and enterprises years after we decide to construct, the statement continued. Ng Chi Meng, a second minister for transportation, said, "In the aviation sector, first-mover advantage is essential. Creating airport infrastructure requires careful planning and patience. The Changi Aviation Hub and airlines both have room to expand with enough capacity." Competition. There are other airports that aren't still. While Incheon Airport in South Korea is ramping up from more than 60 million to over 100 million people per year, Dubai has ambitions to boost its yearly handling capacity from roughly 90 million to 250 million passengers. A 3rd runway is being built in Hong Kong, while additional airports are being built in India and China. A 3rd runway is being built in Hong Kong, and additional airports are being built all throughout India and China. Projections and statements. According to Mr. Lee Seo-hyung, CEO of CAG, any airport in Asia is probably calculating as we are, attempting to estimate the sort of growth that will occur. In reality, if there are no additional airports expanding in Asia, we will need to reevaluate our assumptions to see whether our estimates are overly optimistic. No one can predict the future. Beyond what any of us can anticipate, there may be unforeseen disturbances. However, the wager on the hub frequently represents a fundamental wager on the expansion of the whole region and our continuing importance in this expanding region. A rough road lies ahead. Projections, nevertheless, are not always precise. We don't have a crystal ball, and we are not flawless, Mr. Lee said. Even though we generally develop supply before demand, there have been times over the past 30 years when we felt a little bit of congestion in T1 before T2 started. We had to improve and expand T1 as soon as T2 was opened. It fails to adequately convey the difficulties that come with seeing into the future. Take forecasts for the next 20, 30, and more years. But we must take action in that direction. According to Mr. Lee, Changi might be handling roughly 90 million passengers a year in 15 years based on an annual compounded traffic rise of between 3 and 4%. The 4 already operational terminals will be able to accommodate up to 85 million people yearly by 2019.